This happened when I rented my first apartment after moving for work. It was an older building, only 3 floors, built sometime in the late 70s according to the landlord. Nothing about it looked unusual. Cheap rent. Quiet neighborhood. Close enough to work that I could walk there. The apartment itself was on the top floor, which I actually liked because I figured no one would be above me making noise. That detail matters because what started happening a few weeks later made absolutely no sense. The first sound came around 2 in the morning on a Thursday. A single heavy step directly above my bedroom. Not like pipes. Not like wood settling. An actual footstep. Slow. Heavy enough that I sat up immediately. Then silence. I stayed awake for maybe a minute waiting for another sound. Nothing. The next morning, I asked the landlord if maintenance had been working on the roof. He looked confused and said nobody had been there. I reminded him I lived on the top floor. He just laughed and said old buildings make strange sounds when temperatures change. That explanation worked for about 2 days. Then it happened again. This time multiple steps. Very slow. Crossing from one side of the bedroom ceiling to the other. Pause. Then one more step directly over my bed. I turned on every light immediately. The sound stopped the second the lights came on. That was the first moment I felt genuine fear because random building noises don't react to lights. The next night I stayed awake on purpose. At around 1:43 a.m., I heard it again. One step. Then another. I started recording with my phone. The sound moved across the ceiling exactly like someone pacing carefully. Not fast. Not random. Controlled. Then something dragged lightly across the ceiling above the closet. A slow scraping noise. Like fingertips or nails. I called the landlord the next morning and insisted someone check the attic space. He finally agreed. The building had a narrow maintenance hatch in the hallway ceiling outside my apartment. He came with a ladder around noon. I stood there while he opened it. Dust fell everywhere. He lifted himself halfway up, looked around with a flashlight, then climbed back down. He said there was nothing up there except insulation and old wiring. I asked if anyone could enter from another apartment. He said no, the attic space above my unit was isolated. No access from outside except the hatch. For about 4 nights after that, nothing happened. I actually thought maybe it was stress or my imagination. Then Sunday night changed that. I woke up because something tapped directly above my head. 3 taps. Slow. Intentional. Then footsteps again. Except this time they didn't stay above the ceiling. They moved toward the hallway, and I heard something impossible. The hatch outside my apartment opening. A metallic creak. Then a soft impact on the hallway floor. Like someone landing lightly. I froze in bed. Every light in the apartment was off except the microwave clock in the kitchen. Then came the sound of footsteps in the hallway outside my bedroom. Inside my apartment. Slow. Measured. 1 step every few seconds. I grabbed my phone but didn't call immediately because I genuinely thought maybe I was mishearing something from another unit. Then my bedroom door handle moved. Just slightly. Not turning fully. Just enough to tell me someone was touching it. The handle stopped. Then a quiet knock. 1 knock. Then silence. I finally called emergency services and whispered my address. While I was on the phone, I heard footsteps retreat back down the hallway. Then the hatch outside opened again. Another soft landing overhead. Then silence. Police arrived within 7 minutes. Longest 7 minutes of my life. They searched the apartment first. Nothing. Then they checked the hallway hatch. 1 officer climbed up with a flashlight. He stayed silent longer than expected. Then called the second officer up quietly. When they came back down, neither said much immediately. Finally 1 officer asked, "How long have you been hearing footsteps?" I told him about 2 weeks. He looked toward the landlord, who had arrived by then, and asked if anyone else had reported sounds. The landlord hesitated before saying no. The officer didn't believe him. Then he showed us what they found. A sleeping bag. Empty water bottles. A flashlight. And several food wrappers. Someone had been living above my ceiling. But that wasn't the part that still bothers me. What bothered me was what they also found near the insulation directly above my bedroom. Small drilled holes. Perfectly lined up. Pointing straight down over my bed. The officer asked if I had noticed them. I said no because from below they were invisible in the ceiling texture. Then he asked something that made the landlord visibly pale, who had previous access to this hatch. The landlord answered quietly, "The last tenant." I asked what happened to him. Neither answered immediately. Then the landlord said, "He left without notice." I moved out 2 days later. Months later I met one of the neighbors by chance near the old building. I asked if anyone new moved into my unit. She looked confused and said, "No one stays there long." I asked why, and she said, because every new tenant eventually hears someone walking above them.